Hi there, Facebook land and LinkedIn land and YouTube world. I'm Michelle.
I'm Jim.
We're from A Teak of Your Own. Welcome to another Motivational Monday.
Let's get motivated.
Woohoo! All right. It's a good week.
Yeah, they're all good weeks, aren't they? Some are better than others, but
it's going to be a good week. We've got training that we're doing this week.
Got more training going on, yeah.
Next week's a big week.
Yes.
Got another webinar next week. Next week's webinar is building your brand.
Oh, okay.
So that'll be a good one. And then more training next week.
Yes.
And we're halfway through June, which amazes me. Flag Day is tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
And so for those of you who...
You can tell I'm just surprised by everything today.
Those of you who have the ability to fly the American flag tomorrow, because it is Flag Day tomorrow. I think lots of good stuff going on.
Yeah.
It's a good day to have a good day.
Have a good day.
Yes. So last week we started talking about this book. Managing Oneself by Peter Drucker. And it's tiny, 55 pages.
Right. So that's a good one. If you promised yourself that you would read a book, you can get that, take you about an hour, and bang, you read a book.
There you go. So it's printed by the Harvard Business. Once upon a time, it was probably an article.
I think it was.
Yeah. And then
they turned it into this little book.
They turned it into this time.
And I think he's got more of those little books.
He does.
It's kind of like John Maxwell. He has his
big
books,
tiny books,
but then they also take and break them up.
Yeah.
And he has some tiny books.
He does have tiny
so
books.
that's your workaround. If you're one of those people who your New Year's resolution was to read a book a week or a book a day. I don't think that. But
yeah.
A book a week or a book a month if you just don't like reading that much. Get these kinds of books, and there you go. And it's a book.
And it doesn't have pictures.
So it's not like it's your kid's book, as those don't count as far as being an adult reading a book.
I think they should.
So, or if you're in a program where
I think they should.
Well, some of them could.
One fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish.
No, not that one. There's some that have some heavier content that could work.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, and if you're in a program where you're required to read a certain number of pages out of an educational or motivational book every day, there you go. That one would get you about 5 days worth of reading.
Yeah.
And each day would take you.
Yeah, if you're doing 75 hard, this would get you through 5.5 days.
5.5 days, and that's a very quick 10 pages each time. So there's plenty of books out there like that, and they're loaded with content.
So today we're continuing on. Last week we talked about strengths.
Mm-hmm.
This week we're talking about performance.
Yeah, that's where you take those strengths and you put them to work.
You do. So the first thing that he says is, how do I perform? And he literally says, amazingly few people know how they get things done.
I would agree with that, because I tell you, every single year at the end of the academic year, I look back and I absolutely wonder, how in the world did we pull it off?
Yeah.
It's amazing to me. I look at our division, I look at our department, and I say my division and department because I don't see what goes on in the others so much, and so I don't know if they're like us. And I look at how we have I would call it skeletal crew running things. Mm-hmm. We should have more people. And we pull it off every single year.
Yes,
it's just amazing, and we do it well, I think, overall. And but how do we do it? I haven't the foggiest idea. I mean, we know what classes we got to do,
Mhm.
but cycling everything through and handling all the, and same thing with, I'm sure it's other people with their business lives. they, they probably are, stuff gets finished and they look at it and they're going, holy cow, we did that.
Well, and I think that brings to question, what is your process for reviewing?
Right.
And if you get to the end of a project and you're just like, oh, wow, how do we do that?
How do we do that? That's pretty good.
That may mean you need to put something in place
Yeah.
where you are constantly reviewing what it is you actually do.
Right.
So that way you actually put it in writing.
Mm-hmm.
That way, for future projects, you'll be able to reference what you did. You'll know what went well, what didn't go so well, and you'll be able to make some changes. So documenting is going to be very helpful.
Yeah, and I think also documenting the things that, because I think for most people, most places, they have systems in place to do things. It's those out of the ordinary things. Those are the things that I always look back at and go, how in the world did we pull that off? Yeah. Just because there's so many out of the ordinary things that happen, especially the last few years. Oh my goodness. These have been the years where I've really looked at it and going, wow, we have some talented people working in our organization to be able to, handle these changes, especially things where we were turning on a dime.
One of my friends, her husband is a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And every year he has the opportunity to take students to a competition, but to a national competition. Mm-hmm. And every year they go. And every year it's the same thing. It's, what did we do last year? What's the paperwork that I had to fill out? Mm-hmm. What was, and he doesn't document any of it. And okay. He's done this for several years. And it's like, if you documented all of this, it'd make it a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
When you're trying to put everything into place, things as simple as, what hotel did we stay at?
Yeah.
Just having something in place to where you document all that, it'll make it a whole lot easier in the future. But one of the things that Drucker asks in here, he says, for knowledge workers, how do I perform may be even more important question than what are my strengths? Mm-hmm. And that's because performance carries the results of what your strengths are.
Right.
And so understanding how you perform, part of that is knowing, and he has the question in here, am I a reader or am I a listener? Mm-hmm. So when it comes to receiving instructions and receiving feedback, do you do better reading it, or do you do better hearing somebody tell you what to do? And which are you?
I'm a listener.
Yeah, and I'm a reader.
Yeah.
So
I can do both.
Yeah.
And I do read, but if I can hear it, mm-hmm. for me, I think it sticks better. But yeah, I've always been that way. Not an auditory learner.
I need to be able to read it. I need to be able to see it, mm-hmm. Because here I can't reference back to what I heard. Mm. It's gone. Once you say it, it's gone. So unless you record it, and then literally I can get the transcript of it, it doesn't do me a whole lot of good for somebody to
well, right. And I think part of that question though is beyond that. It's like with your process of learning, mm-hmm. I retain more information if I've got it, on a CD and I'm listening to it in my car. Yeah. I love CDs. That's why, thank goodness, probably one of the last generation of cars is going to have a CD player in it. I still have one. And I can listen, mm-hmm. I can listen to CDs and absorb that information. And to me, I absorb it a whole lot faster that way than reading it. And that's because one of the things that happens with reading is I try to go too fast.
I read it. The other thing is when I read it, I need an actual book because I like to highlight, I like to write. That's what I do. And so
you do a lot of that, and I just store
that's
the points that I really want to keep. They just kind of go in there, and unfortunately, there's still room, so it stays.
That's good.
Yeah.
You haven't had to kick anything out yet?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not yet?
I don't think I've made it to the Kelly Bundy syndrome
Okay.
yet. So it's not a case of as I get new facts in.
There's
some
only so
old
much
fact,
room.
Yeah, an old fact has to go away.
Yeah. The next question he has in this particular section is, how do I learn? And that ties in, like you said, hand in hand with, are you a reader or are you a listener? Because with learning, you've got people who will learn through reading, through writing, hands-on. You have auditory learners. You've got a lot of different types of learning styles out there. And one of the things that will drive you crazy as a trainer and as an instructional designer is creating trainings based on all these different learning styles.
Yeah.
Because you don't know who is going to be in your training sessions. So you have to create learning activities that correspond with all the various styles. And that can be time consuming.
Very time consuming.
So one of the things I sent you this weekend was an outline of what instructional designers use when it comes to creating a course. And the purpose of the outline was to see all the different types of learning styles that you can incorporate into any particular training. And when I was a contract trainer, and I would do some of the trainings out there on the road, I would take the material and try and figure out how to incorporate as much as possible for some of this stuff, because some of it doesn't lend itself well to different types of learning. And you're literally having to create different types of activities within the training to get things going. How do you do it in the classroom?
Well, there's only so many ways to teach numbers.
Yeah.
And so I've stuck to what is tried and true. There were more things that could be done in the online environment than in the at least I think the in-person environment. But when you're talking numbers, there's like I said, I don't know what else you do besides here's how you do the calculations.
I remember way back when, I'm sure they still do this with accounting textbooks, is you would have a section in that accounting textbook where you had pages that were see-through. And they were all these journal entries and journals and financial statements. And literally, as you would put the page on top of the previous page, it would show you the next step in the process. So they would create that into the actual textbook itself, how things would move from one point to another.
You made me think of an old book. I remember we were looking at the human body.
Yeah.
You would do the pages
for anatomy.
Yeah, anatomy. Yeah.
Yeah, and you literally peel back the skin, and then you'd peel back the muscles, and you'd see it all.
Yeah, the thing that I've done is I've integrated learning management systems into what I do. And so there are within those systems, with the material that students have to read or review, there are multiple ways that they can do that. They can do it where they can press a button and basically there will be a voice that will read to them, or they can read it. They can read it on the computer screen. They can highlight it on there. They can download it if they want to. So there's multiple ways for them to do that, and that's built into the learning management systems.
That's cool.
So yeah.
It's interesting how technology I think when people created certain types of technology, they didn't take into account the way that people learn.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're having to go back in there and add in
Right.
some of the stuff.
Another thing that I realized some time ago was that not all students, not all people learn at the same speed or the same pace. And so one of the things that I used to do was with homework. We don't have this problem in our training classes we do, but you have this in college. I use the old traditional method, and that's before we had all this wonderful technology available to us, where I would assign a homework set and students have to go off and do it. And then they would turn it in and I would grade it based on how close they were to getting the correct answers. Mm-hmm. That's a terrible way to do things because what it does is it sets up this expectation that you have to get it right the first time. Mm-hmm. And so these are things the students are doing for the first time. And the expectation that it's going to be perfect the first time, every time, is nuts. And of course, what I would have is, the smart, really smart students, they would get it all right. And then everybody else would just copy their work. And that I figured out that that's useless. It did not help the students who were doing the copying. Mm-hmm. They still didn't learn how to actually do the calculations or understand the material. And this is one of the things that I love about the learning management systems that I have available to me now, which is amazing because some of our administrators do not like them, is when I assign a homework set, students now have unlimited opportunities to get it right. They can go and do it over and over and over again until they get the right answer. And I also tell them, I don't mind if you guys work together because they do this on their own time out of class. And I encourage them to work together. I tell them it's not cheating. Work together. Now it's like you're not going to do yourself a lot of good if all you do is go get the answers from somebody so you can get the credit for it. But, work together. And I have found that I get what?
Nothing.
No, I get pretty good results. What?
Students want the right answers because that's what they get points for.
Well, I understand that. Yeah. I understand that. And they will get them right at some point. Sometimes they do. I'll get emails and they'll ask me, well, how do I do this? Well, I can't understand this. And I'll send them an answer, send them a response. But the idea is I want to take that pressure off. And it gives them that opportunity. Now, of course, they do have time deadlines, and so they have to be aware of those. Mm-hmm. But I've found that I've gotten much better results with that, and the students are much happier with that type of a system. And like I said, this is one of those things that came about because of all the newer technology. And I still find it amazing that we have some administrators who do not like these learning management systems that some of us will use. And I use it extensively. The technology is there. And it provides that capability of being able to get a better performance out of people by giving them that flexibility. And so that's a big part of set up on those systems. They can figure out how best to use it for their learning style.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Very good. So Drucker goes through this particular section on performance. He wants to know, how do you perform? How do you get things done? How do you learn? Are you a listener or a reader? Mm-hmm. And one of the things that he asks is, do I produce results as a decision maker or as an advisor? What do you see the difference between a decision maker and an advisor?
Well, the decision maker is the one that's, they're obviously making that determination about what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. The problem of being a decision maker is that sometimes decision makers don't bother to consult anybody else. Okay. And it can be problematic when people are having to implement things based off of a decision that they don't understand. Mm-hmm. In some environments, you don't have a choice. Okay? Military, when you're in the middle of combat, you don't have time to explain to, Private Johnson why you want him to go over there and dig that hole. You just tell him to go do it. But in the business world, you definitely want to, as much as possible, consult the people who are actually going to be implementing whatever decisions you are going to be making. Advisor, on the other hand, I liken it to the difference between, we always hear that old phrase, you want to be the guide on the side, not the sage on the stage.
Right.
As an advisor, that's what you are, the guide on the side. So you're bringing people to making coming to the conclusions and determining what needs to be done. And by helping to steer them to that point, they feel like they have more stake in it because they've been part of that decision-making process. And so they're more likely to carry it out.
Yeah. And the other part that goes along with this is, do you work well with people?
Yes.
Because if you work well with a team, if you work well with others, that's going to be a very different performance for you as opposed to if you work better on your own.
Right.
Because the people who work well by themselves, they're not relying on other people.
Mm-hmm.
They don't necessarily develop the communication skills needed to work well with others. And as a result, their performance is very different.
Right.
And how they do things is very different than the people who work well with others.
Right. But there's a much greater demand, at least in my view, for the people who can work well with others and aren't always wanting to work by themselves. So I get that. I get students who are like that. They think they want a career where they're going to go to their little cubicle and they're going to do their own little thing and they won't ever have to interact with anybody else ever. And trying to explain to them that that's probably not going to happen. That can be difficult, especially in my field.
Mm-hmm.
People think it's all about numbers. No, it is about people.
Yeah. Finances.
Finance
you
is
have
definitely
a
about
lot
people.
of interaction with different people.
Of course, accounting, you have a lot of interaction too.
Yeah, people didn't realize that. I would get a lot of people who would go into accounting and they were just like, oh, I don't need to have good communication skills. And I'm like,
oh, you are so wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that all the time. All the time.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And trying to convince all of these business majors that the better your people skills, the further you're going to go.
Yes.
Yeah. The technical skills, you can learn those. People skills, you can also learn people skills, but it's a different
different skill set.
It's different skill set. And it is not as cut and dry.
No.
Accounting is pretty simple. You've got I say simple, a lot of people struggle with accounting, but there's rules to it. You just follow the rules.
And it's very black and white.
Right. Finance, same thing, especially you're working with other people's money, you're a fiduciary, you look out for them. You're not there to look out for yourself. As long as you remember that, it's fairly simple.
Yeah.
But it's those connections. It's working with people. And, if you're not able to do that, you are going to be very limited in how far you can go, unless you are just an absolute genius and you can come up with, new creative ways of doing things or new products, and you're able to do all this. But even when things are being created, research people, they don't usually work all by themselves. No. They're working with others. So, one of the only, there are some areas where you will work by yourself somewhat. I notice in academia when it comes to doing research, a lot of these professors who are trying to get tenure, quite often, they're working on an idea and a paper by themselves. But part of that is because then you get, full credit for the publication. So it's weird. It's almost as if you're encouraged to work by yourself as opposed to working in collaboration with others, because there are some schools that they will only give credit for partial publication if you work with too big of a group.
That's true.
Yeah, I know it's true. I've seen it. And that's nuts.
Yeah.
That's nuts, because you're going to get better, more interesting work, I think, when you're working as part of a team. But
so what if they do need help with their communication skills?
Hey, call us. Call us.
If you need help with those people skills. Give us a call. Go to our website. What is our website again?
ATigueOfYourOwn.com.
ATigueOfYourOwn.com is correct. And you can actually go on there. You can send us an email. You can give us a call. You can make an appointment. to book an appointment with
Yep.
us and get together and let us know what we can do to help you.
Yeah. Any business people, any organizations, give us a call. We got a lot of different things we can do. We've got even some stuff that we do complimentary. First consultation is complimentary. And sometimes we'll even do an initial training of some kind that is complimentary, just to give you an idea of what we can do. Because think about it, we don't want to come in and work with you if we don't think we're going to be able to help you.
Right.
If we see that, there's not many issues that we couldn't help with, but if we see, where we don't think we're going to be able to add value, then we'll tell you. So it's a two-way street. It's just not a matter of you deciding, hey, we want to work with them. It's also a matter of us going, if we're not going to be able to add value, we're not going to do it. And so we won't waste your time and money. So so give us a call. Mm-hmm. Like I said, no obligation.
Nope.
Happy to talk to you. Happy to discuss your issues. Maybe even offer some suggestions, even if you don't hire us to do anything, because that's what we do. We're here to serve and help.
So next week, values.
Values. Ooh, that's one of your favorite topics.
I do like talking about values because that's what everything is grounded in. All right. So until then, like I said, go to the website, atofyourown.com. Let us know what we can do to help you. You can always drop a comment here on Facebook or on LinkedIn. Let us know what you think, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.